Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You know, one of the things about YouTube, when you need an expert, you go to YouTube. I need an expert because I have got me a brand new kayak. I'm so excited about it. And I've called in my buddy, Gene, the Flukemaster Jensen, who's got a great YouTube channel and is also an excellent kayak angler. Correct me if I'm wrong, Angler of the Year last year?
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Yeah, I'm sitting in second in the points this year.
Okay,
so, yep.
All right, so Angler of the Year coming up right here. I don't want to jinx anything.
Yeah, going to the championship.
We don't believe in that. But man, me and Cade are brand new owners of two kayaks, and I'm so excited, but I've never been in one. I don't know anything about them. And man, when I look at Gene's kayak out here, it is decked out. It's just like my Z21. It has got so much stuff on it. Basically, that's why I called you, man. I want your help on how to outfit this kayak. What all can I put on it? I mean, just in the little bit I've talked to you, I'm amazed at the stuff you're telling me that I can put on this kayak, and I can't wait to get in it. So teach me a little bit about kayak fishing, Gene.
Well, one of the nice things about kayaking is that you can modify and make your own stuff and really just make it work for you. You're right, I've got all the bells and whistles. I used to make fun of people that had all the bells and whistles, and here I am 3-4 years later. I've got live scope, I've got 2 units on my kayak, I've got everything I need that even a big bass boat will have. But the biggest thing to understand is that everything's got to have its place, because you're taking all of this stuff that you would normally have in your bass boat and putting it into a little bit of area and then wanting to fight a fish with all that stuff there. So if there's anything in the way, like a paddle, a net, or anything else, you're going to lose that fish 9 times out of 10. Yeah. And so when you're fishing for big tournaments like I am, those fish are worth $1,000, $2,000. You know, yeah. It's just crazy. So you really got to think, and that's kind of the stuff I want to show you is what's available to rig up your kayak, and then where things go and how to figure it out for yourself, because we don't all fish the same. Something
cool that Gene said that I thought was really cool. He's timed himself on getting his net. He can get his net in 0.7 seconds.
I can have my net out and the fish in the net.
And it always faces the same way. He's got a special holder that the net's always in there in the same way. Yep. He's actually got videos, if you go to his YouTube channel, that he's caught the fish midair in the net. As he's fighting it, he grabs it and catches it, which is really, really cool.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something I practice like a baseball guy practices a swing. I'll get there and I'll get my motor going full speed about 6 miles an hour, and I'll throw bobbers out in the water, and I'll go up and I'll just practice getting my net out and scooping the bobbers as fast as I can. So cool. It's just something you practice because it does help. I mean, the last 2 months ago, I had a 6-pounder coming at the boat, and I already had the net in my hand, but he was coming at the boat, and just as I reached that net out, the jig pops out of his mouth. Oh, and I already had that sucker ready to go. It was like, whoa, and I just leaned out and I got him to roll into the net. And that happens more times than not with a kayak because you lose power on your hook set.
Because the boat's going towards that fish.
Boat moves towards the fish on the hook set.
I never thought about that.
So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll get into.
So if you're okay, I'd like to just start at the front. What trolling motor would you recommend? This is where trolling motor goes, not in the back.
Yep.
Trolling motor. What would you recommend to put on here?
I have an XI3 on mine, a Motor Guide XI3, okay. And the XI3 because it has spot lock or what they call it.
Just like my boat.
Yeah, it's just like your boat.
So I can hit a button and it'll stay.
Yep, and so like when I'm fishing in the wind and stuff like that, and I don't have to worry about it. I'm an offshore angler, and even in a kayak, I love to go fish ledges. And so you can sit it, drop it, push the button and go, and just fish. And that's the biggest thing with kayaks is the paddle gets in the way, and now we're getting into more motor-oriented kayaks like this one. There's a lot more coming out that you can mount motors to, and then Motor Guides come out with the XI3 kayak one that's a really good kayak. The only difference is it's just got a shorter shaft is all.
That's okay.
Yeah, and so
will I operate that with a foot pedal or a remote?
I use a remote. It all depends on how stable your kayak is. You still, when you stand up in a kayak, you're going to want your feet to be pretty even in weight, and if you have your foot on a foot control, you're going to have most of your weight on one side.
Gotcha.
And so these things lean a little bit easier than those big old bass boats of yours.
I didn't think kayaks were this big, I'll be honest
This is a big one.
This thing is massive. Yep. We played with it a little bit in the pond, and it's like I mean, you could walk all over it. I felt like I was in a boat or
John
boat.
This is bigger than the average kayak. So which is good. You've got a lot of room to, us bass guys, we love tackle. And so
So I understand, like you said, you've got the forward-facing sonar on your boat,
Yep.
the transducers,
Yep.
and you were telling me that I mount those down through here?
Yeah, so this kayak and a lot of other ones on the market are starting to have where a scupper hole is. Now the scupper hole are the holes that are in the kayak.
Now, what are scupper holes?
And they're basically the horizontal support for your deck of your kayak.
It has nothing to do with water getting in and out?
No,
My son
it
was like,
drains water.
He thought the boat was going to sink.
Oh, I know. I made a video about that just recently. But it helps water drain out, which is really good, especially if you get caught in rapids or stuff like that, or get a wave over top of it.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is if you didn't have them, your deck would flex really, really bad. So that's your horizontal connection between the bottom of the deck and the bottom of the boat and the top deck.
Okay. Okay.
And so this scupper hole up here is center, and then it's got a huge molded, if you see this whole area down here. So this will hold a full-on side scan.
Okay.
Is what it'll do. And you run your wire down here and you mount it. There should be two little divots right there. And then you mount it through that. And that's why you got an access plate up top, so you can reach down there and
You know what would be so cool
get the
about
screws in
that?
there.
Like when I'm always using my side imaging on my bass boat, I'm always having to think about the transom 90-degree angle, so I'm always turning to the back to throw towards
Right.
that. That's going to be
straight out
in front of me.
just
Like
out
it's
front.
more
Yep.
like, that's pretty cool.
And then
I like
mine is directly in between my feet on my kayak. So mine is literally
it.
90
Right,
degrees.
90 degrees.
And
That's
so
cool.
it's nice to have it up front. And
Yeah.
the same thing on my big boat, I always have to think, well, I just passed it. It's way back there, and it stinks. But,
So I noticed you had stuff like this on your kayak. What are these right here?
so these are electrical ports. This one would probably be the what would run your electronics, because
Okay.
you want your electronics
Okay.
somewhere in this vicinity,
And
and it would run to a battery that's right here.
okay.
And let me look in here to see if there is wiring in here. Yep. So this wiring right here would run to your battery, and it runs up front. So
Okay.
for me, I would put a camera up there, but that's just me. I've got two of those same exact Yak Light plugs that are up in the front of my boat. One runs my camera, and the other one runs my
So
electronics.
I need to put another one there if I'm going to film a YouTube.
You're gonna put a camera up in front.
Okay.
They're real handy. They're aftermarket, and they're a lot of fun.
And would to mount the pole to put it on, would you drill a hole in this?
I know that Yak Attack makes it's called a mighty mount, which is just a little square thing with 4 screws. You drill the holes, bolt it to it, and then you can mount any of the accessories.
Okay.
So if yours has these gear tracks, they'll
Yep.
take Yak Attack gear stuff. And so you can do the same thing. You can mount their camera mounts and stuff like that to the mighty mount. And it's just a really good solid mount. It doesn't rock or anything. It's there.
Okay.
You still have to drill holes.
So where would you put the depth finder then?
On this one, just to start with, what I always recommend is when somebody's trying to figure out where things go, put them somewhere temporarily. Don't hard mount them until you know exactly where they're going to go. So with this one, I would mount it off to the side to start with. See how much fun it is to fight a fish around your fish finder. And I would actually put it somewhere here or somewhere where you can reach it. You're like me, you like to
wanna
play
touch it,
around with
yeah.
it. And so you could probably mount it to the top of this, but the only problem is you would lose access
To my
while you're fishing to this, but this is just your battery. This isn't
I
going to
don't
be
need
tackle
to get in
storage
there.
or anything like that.
So just mount the bracket literally to
right
that
there.
lid.
And it's pretty solid.
Okay. Awesome. So what would I put in these tracks then?
So if your kayak has, these are called gear tracks. So I like to put, and you've got spots where you can put aftermarket gear tracks, and I've got several on mine. But Yak Attack makes them. There's a couple other companies that make them that'll slide in there. But this is just a mount that goes into
I
the
got some.
into the
my
gear
boat
track.
came with some of that stuff.
Yep.
So I didn't.
Now,
Okay.
mine's got a little sand in it, so it's a little hard to turn. But it locks down, and then,
Hold on.
and that's not locked down all the way.
Okay,
I'm not going to
yeah,
tighten it down all the
yeah.
way. But then,
I don't want to leave it on my boat.
heavens no, these are important to me. But it locks down, and then your rod holder can go on there, or a fish finder mount, or something. Something can go on there, and it locks down, and I have these all over my kayak. I have
So I
one
need to
up
get a
front.
bunch of those. Okay.
Yeah, I have them for camera mounts. I have them for everything, and they come with the rod mounts, or the rod holders.
All right. So what you mentioned this thing right here? You said something earlier about this? What is this?
So this is your light control and your power control. Okay, so Yak Power makes it. It's also Bluetooth capable, so you can control it with an app on your phone if you need to.
Control what?
Your lights. So most states when you have an electric motor on there, you got to have running lights.
Okay.
So you mount a green and red light up front, and it turns it on and off. It controls the power to your electronics, so you can turn the power on
Just
and
do
off
it
your
all right
electronics.
here, or an app on my phone.
Yep.
And that's Yak Attack, you said?
Yeah, Yak Power.
Yak Power.
Yep, and that's that. They went ahead and installed them for you, but you know you got 1, 2, and then bow, middle, and stern, is what usually how I do it. And so they have tons of different lights and stuff. They got big, huge green lights that go on the side. So if you're night fishing and stuff like that, you can already have them mounted on.
You're saying that you went saltwater fishing in one of these. What was it like catching redfish in one of these?
If I ever lived, and I told you this, if I lived that close to the redfish in Louisiana, if I lived in Louisiana, I would never catch another bass out of a kayak, because I love it's the stalking, the sight fishing.
Big bull red.
Yep. No I mean, I have a motor on there, but when I'm stalking them, the motor's up and I'm paddling. I've got a stand-up paddle that
Real quiet.
and I caught a 45-pound black drum
wow.
out of my kayak, and it took me a half a mile away from where I originally caught it. And then I caught a 40-inch redfish.
Right.
That was about a 20-minute fight.
Me and Kate can't wait. We're pretty excited.
Yeah,
so.
but, you know, my biggest fish out of a kayak is a 250-pound Goliath grouper.
Really?
Yep. 0 to 7 knots like that.
It pulled you 7 knots?
Yes, it was. I got it on. I'll have to show it to you tonight. It's a real long video, and I've been meaning to shorten it down and just
So is it
have
on
that
YouTube?
clip.
Can
Yeah,
the viewers go watch it?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
All right, we'll leave a
It's
link. We'll leave a link to it. I mean, you got it on there?
That'd be great. Yeah, definitely. I can give you a link to it, and it's a long video. Just go to the back.
Okay.
So anyway, I made it too long, I've regretted it ever since. So yours
I
has.
want to see that though. 7.5 knots by a fish.
It was nuts.
That's
It's like being
crazy.
towed by a dang VW bug.
That's crazy.
So.
I noticed here that there's like the lower versus higher mounting. What would I need at higher versus lower?
So if you're ever in rapids or in rough water and you find yourself getting a little tippy, just lower your center of gravity by
or maybe
picking
if
up.
somebody's older, one of our viewers is older, that they don't have great. So I guess you just lift that out.
Yep.
Okay.
And it drops down into a lower position,
channel.
and it just lowers your center of gravity and makes it more stable.
Okay.
So,
That's cool.
but most of the time we're going to be fishing with it in a high position. It's just a lot more comfortable to sit in.
Okay.
And having a high seat like this one has, you literally don't have to look for your seat when you're sitting down. You're standing up, you set the hook on a fish, you need to sit down, you just sit down in it like it's in a lawn chair.
Okay, so moving back, you told me this is obviously where the battery goes. This is where I'll hook up my battery. You told me something really cool about these. I just thought I didn't, but what would this be for right here?
So there's another type of motor called a Torqeedo. I have the Torqeedo 1103 on the back of mine, which is like a 3-point-something mile an hour electric motor, or horsepower electric motor. So it'll push them, but.
I mean, you're speaking all Greek to me. I've never heard any of this
So
stuff.
it's just an electric motor is all it is. And so that, or like a rudder. So this hole right here, you can mount a rudder to it, and that way you can steer. Like what I do with my XI3, when I have a rudder on the back, I'll set the XI3 to go straight, and as I'm working the bank, and I steer with my rudder with my foot pedals. So that's where these little notches come in. So either you can do it or you can get a paddle shop to do it. But you can run steering lines that come out of these holes to your pedals, and it turns your pedals into your steering, and you can steer either that motor or rudder in the back. And so you got access. I like this. This kayak's great because it's got access panels. Okay. I actually had to cut one in my access panel in one of mine one time when I was doing something, because I modify the crap out of my kayaks.
What other options do you think? I mean, I guess this is a pretty cool net you got.
So yeah, this is another Yak Attack. I've modified it a little bit, but what's nice is when it's called a leverage landing net, and I recommend it mainly because of the scoop. Because 9 times out of 10, you've got to keep your balance in a kayak. You've got to maintain an angle with your net, and this allows your net to be in one-handed. It becomes like a two-handed net. But the biggest thing is you mentioned it already, is how I deploy it. This is, okay, you're going to get a pro tip on this one.
A pro tip? What have I been getting?
You're going to get a serious pro tip. Now, I've had the opportunity to film a lot of the best kayak anglers in the country and watch them, and basically in my head critique what they do right and what they do wrong. A lot of guys lay their net up in front of them while they're fishing. Okay, and so I've watched this. So we had a friend of mine not too long ago. He was missing big fish, just losing them at the boat. They were spitting his bait, and he just wasn't getting a good hook set on them. Well, he was covering the bank, moving this direction, hooking the fish in front of him, so you're already moving towards your hook set. Yeah. and then he'd be fighting the fish, and his net's up front, and his
Leans
boat's
towards
moving
the
forward, and he
fish.
leans and bows to the fish,
yeah.
and I watch that line go slack,
Disaster.
and that fish gets off, and these are giant Florida fish. And so my biggest thing when I was working on where to put my net, and this will get into something different here in just a second, is I want to put it in the very precise spot where I can get to it quickly, I can get it without losing tension on the rod, and I can get that fish in the net as fast as I can. And so I have it behind my right shoulder. The reason is because I cast sidearm, so I'll never get never get my rod or line caught in it. I always have my rod in my left hand when I'm netting a fish anyway. So I have it on my right side. I bring the fish, and as the fish is, I will wait till the last possible second. As I'm bringing the fish towards, like you guys would boat flip it.
Right.
I will bring the fish up. It'll come out of the air. I'll look out of the corner of my eyes, see my net, grab it, and have it under the fish. Like I said, in 0.7 seconds. So that fish is coming to me, and it's that motion.
Yeah.
I never lose tension on the rod. I always get the fish in the net, and even if the bait comes out because I didn't have a good hook set, the net's already out and catching the fish.
That's cool.
And so the biggest thing with kayaking though is, this is mainly for new guys with new kayaks and stuff like that.
I'm new.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm super new.
Don't over rig it, but without trying everything first.
Okay.
So try one thing at a time. Say, okay, I want this right here. And as you add more and more things, you got to find room for more and more things. And let me grab something real quick. We're just going to flop this back here. This is a black pack, but
So who makes this?
Yak Attack makes this one.
Okay.
And we used to make them out of milk crates, and people still make them out of milk crates. PVC pipe zip tied to a milk crate will do this too.
I've seen those in YouTube videos.
Yeah, and they're a lot of fun. So this is my tackle box, but it also holds my rods. So imagine having 2 or 3 rod holders off to both sides, and you got to have your rods to where you don't get them snagged in the back cast.
Yeah.
They don't get in the way, and you can position them when you're like on Caddo Lake with a bunch of trees in the water. You don't get your rods up here,
trees.
caught in the trees. And so these rods, when I'm on around overhangs and around places that get snagged, I don't put rods here. I put them here, here, and sticking out the back.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is your positioning of your rods. Your biggest thing is your back cast. I broke a rod yesterday because I totally did not think about it. And it was sitting right here, and I cast it directly in front of me. And my back cast came back and caught the rod. Mm-hmm. And so you don't ever want to cast directly in front of you. You always want to cast off to the side, and almost always sidearm. And so you don't want anything sticking out this way or this way. You just always think about your back cast. So if you can position all your rods to go straight out of the back of the boat and straight up, you'll never have a problem unless you make that front forward cast.
And if I want to throw front forward, I just turn the boat.
Just turn the boat
a little bit.
Or throw sidearm.
That was another one of my questions. Like, what options, would me and Cade need? Like, obviously, this is a pretty cool deal right here to be able to carry our tackle. I love how easy it just goes in and out.
Yep.
For when you're.
These are an add-on. This is a modification that I did, but
Okay.
those are easy to do.
What else do you think down the road? Like you say, I'll fish out of it, but what other things? I mean, I'm just amazed and blown away by all the things that you can put on a kayak. Is there other things that are necessities or wants or options or?
A good, comfortable PFD. So if you want to get crucified on social media, go kayak fishing without your PFD on and put it on because I've had it happen to me, and I do it every once in a while. I'll do a video where it's on purpose, where I paddle away from the truck and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot my PFD, and I go and I show how important it is to have it on there. You fall out of one of these things and it can get away from you pretty quick.
In the wind, yeah.
In the wind, or just your body leaving it can push it, and you never know.
Right.
And we've lost guys because of that, even just recently, but it happens.
So with that said, is there like the PFDs I wear, just the inflatable kind? Is that the same kind you wear?
No, I wear a solid one. I wear a NRS Chinook, and it's made for kayak fishing. And the reason I say that is it's got the padding to catch your back is up high, so it doesn't get in the way of this high seat. Okay. So your padding sits up here. Okay. And so, even the vest ones we wear on our big boats, they're uncomfortable as heck because you're leaning forward, it's pushing you forward. So a good, comfortable PFD. And I always say get one with pockets.
You never have enough.
Right, but the reason is you put your phone in that pocket, you're not taking that PFD off because that's where your phone is. And that's where mine is. Mine goes right here in that pocket and it tethers to it. I got a little, I don't have my phone on me, but
I seen that. Yeah,
yeah, I got a
that
tether.
little deal on that.
Yep, and it hooks onto my PFD and it stays there and so on and so forth. But that's my biggest thing. Is just make sure you're always wearing one.
Okay.
And I don't trust the mechanical ones. I never have, just because they're mechanical.
Okay.
I'm a son of an engineer. I know more than anything not to trust anything mechanical. In a big boat, I don't see a problem. But for a kayak, I just like those, those nice hard ones. But more importantly, it's comfortable. And they look like they're really hot. They're not. Right. I was fishing in 94-degree water temperature this year, and I was just fine. So, yep. But the other things, for me, I've got certain rules while I'm fishing. I only allow myself to have 2 with a maximum of 3 rods laying in front of me. The rest of them are going to be put. And so as I'm grabbing more rods to try, I have to make sure that I take 1 and back.
Why is that?
Because once again, you catch a fish and you're fighting a big fish. That's just more things in front of you to get in the way.
Okay.
And so, and they start getting tangled, or if you reach down and grab one, they get tangled with the other one. It makes a bunch of noise and banging around. Just the less in front of you in your work area, the better.
Okay.
And so, and I like to have, I don't like things off to the side. I like everything. My 2 fish finders are between my feet. They're out of the way. I can fight around them if I need to, but they're not hanging off to the side. So it's just a lot. It seems like it's a lot to think about, but if you just do it one at a time, it gets pretty easy. But the biggest things to understand, since you are new to kayak fishing, is 1, when you set the hook, you're losing a lot of power to your hook set. So put your man pants on and drill them.
Okay.
I even go as far as to up my rod. I go from a medium heavy to a heavy if I feel like I need to. And I'll go from a medium to a medium heavy, or just I'll up the power, or braid.
Okay.
A lot of people use braid to a fluoro leader on even their bait casters. I don't.
Right.
I use some pretty good fluorocarbon, so it just all depends.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is you just got to understand. And then cranking. You'll start, you got a lot of drag on those crankbaits. I know you freaking buzz them, and they go, and your boat will go towards where you're cranking. One of the tricks is crank it 90 degrees. And with this boat, I bet you money you can turn side saddle. I bet you can drop the straps on your rod or on your seat, turn your feet and hang them off to the side and cast 90 degrees to your boat, and it'll keep your boat from moving so fast towards the fish. I do that in mine all the time. So,
cool.
This thing, I haven't been in one of these, but it's got to be stable as long as it is.
I've seen you have a power pole on yours. Is that something that you would recommend to put on this one?
Yeah, and you can put it right here if you wanted to. That's what these will fit the power pole mount perfectly.
Okay.
Shallow water, I always have it on.
It's a micro or something.
Yeah, it's a micro power pole. And they're awesome. I mean, if I'm fishing Florida, Caddo Lake, any shallow lakes, I'm gonna have it on there.
Okay.
Most of the time, most of the summer I'm fishing, you got fly on your nose. Most of the time when I'm fishing, I don't have it on there just because I'm an offshore angler and I don't really need it. Just adds more weight.
Okay.
But it's definitely a tool that's well worth it. So.
Awesome. Anything like what happens in rough water in these things?
I don't think anything will happen in this big thing, honestly. Just be careful how you hit waves. If one hits you from the side, just lean into it. But mainly, like if I've got a big one coming, I'll just turn into it and ride it out. And so even in a small kayak, my 10-foot kayak, I'll just turn and ride it out. And that's just all comes from, that reminds me, one other thing with a new kayak. What I want you to do before you put any tackle on this thing is go put it in the water, jump in the water, and practice getting back into it.
Great idea.
An open water re-entry, because that's when people tip their kayak. They'll fall out, their kayak won't tip, but as they're trying to get the belly into that kayak, the kayak comes over on them and all their gear goes in the water.
Okay.
And it's a pretty simple thing. You just want to try to get your waistline over the gunnel before you put your body weight on there. And then you're laying on it, you flip over, you sit up, and you climb back in. It's simple, easy. There's a couple of videos about that.
There's some juice right there. That's life-saving juice.
That will save your life.
Yeah, that's life-saving juice.
It's one of the things I required my kids to learn. And luckily, I used to teach the canoeing merit badge in scouting. So I knew how to do it in a canoe. And if you can do it in a canoe, you can do it in anything. And have I ever fallen out of one? Yes.
Really?
Yep, I have. And I did not tip it, but I dropped a radio in the water and I thought it was a floating radio. So I reached down to grab it and it started to sink. And my left shoulder went over the right gunnel and the boat started to tip too far and I was going to lose gear. And so I threw myself in the water. It was at Caddo 2 years ago. And I turned around, flipped my Crocs off because they float, just flipped them off and then got back in. And Nobody had a camera. I was so mad. When I got in, I was like, nobody. We were filming a TV show. I'm like, nobody had the camera.
Yeah, down there, you know, I would be thinking about alligators.
It was a little cooler. They weren't going to come out. It was in October.
Yeah. Man, Gene, thank you.
Yeah,
I feel very fortunate to be such a new kayak owner and to get your expertise. There was some, heck, I'm going to go back and watch this video a couple of times and make my son watch it, just what we learned in the short amount of time that we talked about this. So I'm so excited about it. I started my career, you know, I did a video with you on your YouTube channel. He asked me a lot of great questions. He asked me how I started my career, and I started my career out of a small boat, you know, one that I propelled with swim fins, and this is really going to get me back to how I started, and I'm super, super excited.
So you want me to make a prediction?
Yeah.
You'll catch bigger fish and more fish out of this than you will your big boat.
Just because I'm quieter?
That, and it makes you stay there. It makes you,
Slower.
I've got to fish right, they're here, I've got to make them bite.
That's a good point.
And you'll
Can't
catch
fire
more
the
of them.
250 up and
No,
run
and
across
go.
the lake.
And that's just, I love my Lumacraft. I love to run all over the lake. But when I have to sit down and I have to pretend I'm in my kayak, when I've got to sit down and catch them, I'm like, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm in my kayak and I'm just going to sit here and just fish for these fish. And it's a lot of fun, man. It really is.
Well, I will call you when I catch my first bass out of it, and I will say thank you. So, can't thank you enough, man. If you guys get a chance, you need to check out Gene's channel. It's just super informative, and I got a bunch of information today for me, actually in person, but there's lots of information on Gene's channel that's over the top, very, very instructional, breaks it down. Really, really a great, great channel, and been doing it for a long time. And fortunate to have you here, bud. I cannot thank you enough, and I wish you all the luck in this upcoming tournament.
Yeah, man.
And thanks so
I'm
much.
glad
for
to be
coming by.
here. Get free food. I mean, what the heck?
We're gonna eat good tonight. We're gonna eat good tonight. So we're friends until Georgia and Oklahoma play.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
We're friends till then. You guys stay tuned. Me and Kate are gonna be filming out of these. We're gonna go fishing out of these a bunch. I'm gonna call Gene when I catch my first bass and thank him. But appreciate you guys following along and tune in next week.